Welcome to Elderly and Health, where simple habits reveal powerful truths about senior wellness. When 70-year-old Bernard Hayes began spraying diluted apple cider vinegar behind his knees before bed, he didn't expect anything dramatic. But within a week, the tingling in his legs eased, his nighttime cramps reduced, and his restless sleep turned restful. Word spread fast, and eventually, so did medical curiosity. Could this odd ritual be the circulation support seniors have been searching for? His journey might just change your evening routine forever. Bernard Hayes, 70, had grown used to the discomfort. Tingling knees, heavy legs, and a tight, pulsing ache that often kept him from falling asleep. His doctor called it poor peripheral circulation, common at his age. Medications helped a little, but the side effects were discouraging. One night, frustrated and scrolling through a natural remedies forum, he stumbled on a curious suggestion: spray diluted apple cider vinegar behind the knees before bedtime. Skeptical but desperate, Bernard mixed equal parts vinegar and warm water, sprayed it behind each knee, and massaged it gently into his skin. The smell was sharp, but oddly comforting. By the third night, the tightness had eased. By day 5, he woke feeling lighter, his legs less stiff, the cramps almost gone. It felt absurd. Could vinegar really make such a difference? He kept going, documenting changes in a notebook. At his next checkup, his improved circulation reading surprised even his doctor. Bernard's experiment was no longer personal, it was a quiet breakthrough. And soon, others were listening. Dr. Grace Mitchell, a respected expert in senior wellness, explains that the area behind the knees houses critical veins and lymphatic channels. Applying a mild acetic acid solution like diluted vinegar may temporarily stimulate local blood flow and nerve endings, she notes. While it's not a cure, it could encourage gentle circulation and muscle relaxation, especially when paired with light massage. She encourages seniors to track their response and always consult their doctor before starting any topical home remedy. As we age, circulation issues can quietly erode comfort, sleep, and mobility. For many older adults, nightly leg cramps, tingling sensations, or a heavy feeling in the knees become normalized, even when solutions might be surprisingly simple. Bernard Hayes' experience with spraying diluted vinegar behind his knees started as an act of frustration, but quickly turned into a discovery worth noting. Within days, he noticed improved leg comfort and fewer nighttime disruptions. His case, now catching the attention of wellness professionals, raises an intriguing question: can natural remedies like vinegar application genuinely support circulation in seniors? This article explores Bernard's journey, the science behind acetic acid's topical effects, and expert commentary from Dr. Grace Mitchell. As we dive into this unexpected wellness story, we uncover how small, affordable habits may offer real relief, reminding us that senior wellness doesn't always come from a prescription. Sometimes, it begins behind the knee. Bernard Hayes had tried nearly everything. Compression stockings, prescribed stretches, magnesium supplements, even herbal teas that promised nighttime relief. Yet every evening ended the same: a dull ache building behind his knees, followed by sudden muscle spasms that jolted him awake around 2 a.m. At 70, Bernard was active for his age. He walked daily, maintained a modest garden, and did crossword puzzles to keep his mind sharp. But his legs? They betrayed him nightly. One evening, after soaking his feet in warm water and rubbing on yet another store-bought cream, Bernard sat scrolling through a wellness forum where seniors shared offbeat remedies. One post stood out. It was simple: spray diluted apple cider vinegar behind your knees before bed. Wait a week. Report back. He scoffed. It sounded like nonsense. But his legs were throbbing. He had nothing to lose. That night, Bernard filled a small spray bottle with a 1:1 mix of apple cider vinegar and warm filtered water. He sprayed 2 generous mists behind each knee and rubbed it in with circular motions. The smell was sharp, the sensation oddly tingling. Still skeptical, he pulled on cotton pajama pants and went to bed. To his surprise, he didn't wake until morning. One night wasn't proof, he told himself. But by the third night, with no cramps, no tightness, number 2 a.m. pacing, he began to wonder if there was more to this old folk remedy than he thought. Bernard wasn't the superstitious type. After a career in accounting, he trusted numbers more than gut feelings. So when he began noticing relief from his nightly vinegar spray, he decided to track it methodically. He created a small chart in a notebook. Each evening, he marked the time he applied the spray, any additional steps taken, massage, elevation, and then rated his sleep and leg discomfort the following morning on a scale from 1 to 10. The pattern became hard to ignore. By night 5, the throbbing behind his knees had disappeared completely. By the end of week 1, he realized he had slept through every night without cramps. It had been months, maybe longer, since that had happened. During the day, he noticed additional benefits: less heaviness in the legs, fewer restless urges to stand or pace, and an odd sense of looseness in the joints when walking. He wasn't imagining this, he was recording it. By the 10th day, he felt something else shift: his confidence. No longer dependent on a drawer full of ointments or late-night pacing rituals, Bernard felt like he had taken ownership of his health again. The act of spraying vinegar, so simple, so strange, had restored not just comfort, but control. It was no longer about whether vinegar worked, in the traditional sense. It was about the empowerment of paying attention, adjusting, and honoring what made him feel better. He shared his chart at his next community wellness meeting. People leaned in. They asked questions. And Bernard realized, maybe this tiny spray bottle was bigger than he thought. When Bernard shared his vinegar routine at the local senior center, he didn't expect much. He thought a few polite nods, maybe a chuckle or two. Instead, he was met with silence, then a flood of questions. How much vinegar do you use? Do you spray both knees, or just the sore one? Is it okay to use the kind with the mother? It turned out, he wasn't alone in his struggles. Dozens of his peers dealt with nighttime leg discomfort, swelling, or a frustrating sense of tight legs that doctors often chalked up to age. Encouraged, Bernard offered to demonstrate. He brought in a labeled spray bottle, a printout of his nightly chart, and even a small handout with mixing instructions. By the end of the session, 6 other seniors had agreed to try it. Within a week, Nora, a 68-year-old with arthritis, reported her legs felt more awake in the morning. George, a retired mechanic, said his usual midnight twitching was noticeably reduced. One woman even claimed it helped her fall asleep faster, something she hadn't done in years. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't universal. But it was movement, both physically and communally. As word spread, the center's wellness coordinator invited Bernard to lead a discussion group. He hesitated at first, he wasn't a doctor, just a man with a spray bottle. But then he remembered how lost he'd felt before trying something new. "I'm not here to preach vinegar," he told the group. "I'm here to say, if something small makes you feel better, it's worth paying attention to." And in that room full of curious faces, Bernard's quiet experiment had turned into shared discovery. At Bernard's next routine appointment, his physician, Dr. Lionel Carter, noticed something unexpected. Bernard's blood pressure had stabilized slightly, his circulation tests showed improved capillary response in the lower legs, and his gait was more relaxed than usual. "What have you been doing differently?" Dr. Carter asked. Bernard, half embarrassed, explained the nightly vinegar spray, waiting for a raised eyebrow or a dismissive laugh. But instead, Dr. Carter leaned in. "Where exactly are you applying it?" he asked, scribbling notes. "How long have you been doing this?" It turns out Dr. Carter had read emerging literature on topical acetic acid and peripheral vasodilation. While studies on vinegar and skin circulation were limited, some preliminary research suggested that vinegar's acidity might stimulate nerve endings and improve local blood flow when massaged gently into soft tissue areas. Curious, Dr. Carter contacted a colleague at the local university's aging research department. A few weeks later, a small observational pilot study was approved. Bernard and several volunteers from the senior center agreed to participate. Each participant documented their symptoms, applied the same 1:1 diluted vinegar mixture nightly for 2 weeks, and logged changes in leg comfort, sleep quality, and swelling. The results were promising. While not every senior experienced the same degree of improvement, most reported measurable benefits: less tingling, decreased restlessness, and a stronger sense of body awareness. For some, it also became a calming bedtime ritual. Doctors were cautious, but intrigued. "We're not calling this a cure," Dr. Carter told a local news outlet. "But when something this simple, affordable, and safe shows consistent effects, it's worth paying attention to." And for Bernard, that attention meant something powerful. He was no longer just a patient, he was part of the conversation. As the study progressed, researchers noticed something unexpected, not just in the data, but in the demeanor of the participants. Many of the seniors who participated in the vinegar experiment weren't simply reporting physical relief. They were describing something more subtle but equally significant: emotional uplift. Nora, one of the earliest adopters, shared, "It's not just about the vinegar. It's the moment. That quiet act before bed, where I feel like I'm doing something kind for myself." That sentiment echoed among the group. For years, many had felt sidelined by a medical system focused more on symptoms than self-connection. This simple routine, spraying and gently massaging vinegar behind their knees, became an intentional pause in the day. It was calming, mindful, and empowering. Dr. Grace Mitchell later reflected, "In senior wellness, we often overlook the psychological impact of habit. When an older adult actively engages in something small but meaningful, it reinforces agency. That alone can enhance outcomes." Some participants added soothing music or deep breathing to the routine. Others created small bedtime rituals: lavender diffusers, journaling, or warm socks after the spray. What began as an odd home remedy had transformed into a gateway for deeper self-care. This emotional layer intrigued researchers. Could the mental benefits of the vinegar routine be just as valuable as the physical ones? Data began showing that participants reported lower stress scores, improved sleep satisfaction, and even a mild increase in optimism. The lesson was clear: healing doesn't always come in large interventions. Sometimes, it begins with the smallest act of noticing, and honoring, that your body still deserves care. And for Bernard, that realization was perhaps more healing than the relief itself. As interest in Bernard's vinegar method grew, the university team overseeing the pilot study decided to broaden their approach. They invited physical therapists, geriatric nurses, and even a vascular specialist to observe and interpret the findings more deeply. What they discovered reinforced something often overlooked in medical circles: simple interventions, when paired with consistency and attention, can produce outsized effects. Topical acetic acid, the main compound in vinegar, had already been studied for its antimicrobial properties. But now, new questions were being asked. Could it mildly stimulate thermoreceptors under the skin, encouraging vasodilation in cooler extremities? Could the act of self-massage enhance lymphatic drainage around the popliteal area, the soft space behind the knees? It wasn't about magic. It was about mechanisms. One physical therapist on the team, Jenna Ruiz, noted that the placement of the application, directly behind the knee, was smart. This area is a hub for veins, lymph nodes, and nerve endings. When treated gently, it can respond strongly, even to low-tech methods. While large-scale clinical trials would still be needed to validate long-term claims, the early observational data showed promise: improved circulation markers, better sleep quality, and higher subjective well-being in seniors who stuck with the practice for more than 10 days. What made the difference wasn't just the vinegar, it was the ritual. The intentionality. The self-touch. In a world filled with high-tech solutions, this experiment had reminded everyone that healing could still be human, tangible, and accessible. As for Bernard, he didn't care much for the scientific jargon. He just knew that he was sleeping again. And when he walked now, he walked without fear of that tightening ache returning. That, to him, was evidence enough. News of Bernard's experience, along with the pilot's study results, began to ripple beyond his town. A regional health blog picked up the story, followed by a wellness podcast that invited Bernard for an interview. He chuckled at first, "I'm just an old man with a vinegar bottle," but his calm voice and clear sincerity resonated. Soon, online forums for senior wellness lit up with testimonials. A woman in Oregon described sleeping through the night for the first time in years. A retired teacher in Florida claimed her restless legs had finally calmed. The comments shared a common thread: relief, empowerment, and disbelief that something so accessible could make such a difference. The university published a summary report with the caveat, "preliminary findings, further research needed." But for the seniors trying it nightly, the benefits were enough to keep going. Senior centers in other cities began experimenting. Some added vinegar spritzes to their wellness programs. Others combined it with stretching classes or calming evening meditations. What started as a quirky habit had become a community health dialogue. Bernard, now affectionately known at his center as Mr. V, remained humble. He didn't promise miracles. "Your knees might not be like mine," he'd say, "but they deserve your attention." For many, that message was what lingered longest. Not the vinegar, but the invitation to listen to one's body again, to be curious, present, and open to trying something new. Because in a world that often tells seniors they're winding down, Bernard had helped remind them, there's still time to feel better. Still room for discovery. And healing might be just one gentle spray away. Months after his first vinegar spray, Bernard Hayes found himself standing in front of a crowded community room, not as a patient, not even as a study participant, but as a peer educator. The senior center had invited him to lead a workshop titled, "Simple Remedies, Real Results." He smiled modestly, holding up the same plastic spray bottle he'd used that first night. He never imagined his small experiment would travel so far. Participants from across the county now came with questions, notebooks, and open minds. Some asked about the science, others about the brand of vinegar. A few just wanted reassurance that taking their health into their own hands wasn't foolish. Bernard's message was always the same: "This bottle didn't change my life, I did. The vinegar was just the reminder that my body still responds when I pay attention." His story began to be shared at regional aging conferences, cited in newsletters, and discussed in caregiver forums. More importantly, it seeded new questions in the medical community: what other low-cost, low-risk rituals were being overlooked because they sounded too simple? Dr. Grace Mitchell later remarked, "We spend millions developing high-tech solutions, but sometimes healing begins with intention and trust." Bernard reminded us of that. Though Bernard never sought recognition, the local university eventually named a small research grant in his honor, to fund further studies in everyday wellness habits among seniors. He kept his life simple. A daily walk. A weekly phone call with his granddaughter. And yes, every night, 2 sprays behind each knee. Because for Bernard, wellness wasn't about fixing what was broken. It was about honoring what still worked, with gratitude, with consistency, and with faith in the small. Had Bernard ignored that strange forum post, his nights may have continued to be filled with pain, pacing, and interrupted rest. His discomfort wasn't life-threatening, but it was slowly eroding his quality of life, draining energy, dulling his mood, and making simple tasks feel heavier. Like many seniors, he might have accepted this decline as inevitable, relying solely on medications that offered limited relief and caused new side effects. But by choosing to try something different, something small, he interrupted that spiral. The potential consequence of not acting would have been more than just discomfort, it would have been the quiet resignation that nothing could change. Instead, Bernard's curiosity created a ripple that reached far beyond him, helping others and even prompting medical interest. The true cost would have been never knowing what one drop of courage might lead to. Dr. Grace Mitchell, a leading voice in senior wellness, emphasizes that while home remedies like vinegar application can be helpful, they must be approached thoughtfully. Apple cider vinegar may offer mild stimulation to blood vessels and skin receptors, she explains, but the greater benefit often comes from the intention behind the habit, gentle massage, routine, and mindfulness. She advises seniors to dilute vinegar properly, 1:1 with water, to avoid skin irritation and to always perform a patch test first. Apply it behind the knees, an area rich in veins and lymph nodes, using light circular motion, she adds. However, Dr. Mitchell is clear that results can vary. This isn't a miracle solution, but it's a low-risk, low-cost practice that may complement a broader wellness routine. She urges older adults to discuss any new habits with their physician and to track how their body responds over time. The goal, she says, is not perfection, but progress, presence, and care. Are you ready to explore simple, natural ways to support your circulation and nighttime comfort? Join thousands of others prioritizing their senior wellness through small, mindful habits. Try the vinegar spray method safely, track how your body responds, and rediscover the joy of restful sleep. Remember, what works for others may inspire what works for you. Subscribe to Elderly and Health for more science-backed stories, expert advice, and real-life transformations. Because when it comes to aging well, the smallest step, taken consistently, can create powerful change. Start tonight with one spray, and take the first step toward better rest and renewed vitality.